I think it's always easier to raise money when you don't need to, because then investors are like, oh, they don't need to raise. Whereas if you're going to investors when you have to raise money, then they're going to be dictating a lot of things, and then they might wait and etc. So that's always been our plan, is always raising when you don't have to raise.
Interesting.
Because it puts you in a position of strength.
Welcome back to the London Food Network podcast, the show where we have honest conversations with people building real businesses across the food, drink and hospitality sectors. A quick note about our podcast: it's supported and sponsored by Embrace AI, which is a consultancy focused on helping food and hospitality businesses grow through smarter automation, better lead generation and systems that remove admin without losing the human touch. So today, it's been a while I've been trying to get Huw on, so I'm really excited to finally bring him on and share his story. So today we are going to be talking to Huw, who's the co-founder of Fresho, a platform many suppliers listening to will already know. And what I find fascinating about Huw's journey is how unconventional it is. Huw didn't come up through tech or food originally. He started in investment banking, spent years in South America working in renewables, helped build and exit other businesses, and then somehow found himself deep in the food supply chain, as you do, solving some of the most painful operational problems the industry faces. Fast forward to today, and Fresho is operating across multiple countries, helping food suppliers automate ordering, operations and decision making, amongst many more. And it's in an industry where margins are tight, labor is stretched, and admin can quietly strangle growth. Huw also recently relocated to New York, actually, to support Fresho's US expansion. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well, and about any surprises he found along the way, and of course what the challenges were to get to where he's at today. So, Huw, I hope that introduction did you justice. Thank you for coming on. Really excited to have a chat. How are you today?
Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, very long introduction for me, so that's always good. Good. Yeah, no, it's nice and cold over here in New York. Just come off Christmas and a snow blizzard over the periods, which us Australians aren't as used to.
Yeah, and you said you went skiing, is that right?
Yeah, went up to Vermont, and it got down to minus 22, so
wow.
I think the lowest I've ever been in is about minus 5, so
wow,
minus 22, that's minus 10 in Fahrenheit. I'm still getting used to the Fahrenheit conversion.
Yeah, and I tell you about it, I still haven't got my head around it myself, actually. Here, let's go back a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about your background, because as I mentioned in the introduction, you didn't start in a conventional way really to get yourself into Fresho. So what was the beginning of Huw in the business world?
Yeah, actually, firstly, I tried to become a professional cricketer when I was early days, and had a couple of seasons in England with some teams playing over there. And it was during the age of such a powerful Australian team that I soon realised at sort of 25, 26 that wasn't going to work. Still managed to play on the MCG, and so had some success in that. But then moved into investment banking and really advising companies on buying and selling and strategic analysis, capital raisings, IPOs, etc. And did that for 4 or 5 years, and then moved to South America in Chile. So I went there for 4 years, and again was raising money for renewable energy projects, so big projects over there in Chile and Brazil. And loved it over there, and then did a startup based in Ecuador, like Auto Trader, selling cars online, and we bought or merged a business in Ecuador, a business in Argentina and a business in Mexico, and we listed that on the Australian Stock Exchange. That was sort of 18 months in, and I spent maybe 9 months in Quito, and then going between Mexico, etc., which was great. It was an introduction into technology, so I'd had sort of very much a investment banking background, and then got into technology that way, and really got the bug on technology, because that was a success in that sense. And then I guess in the background I had been reading about the food chain and wastage in the food chain. I'd never been in the food industry, always loved food, obviously very passionate about food and the food industry, but had been reading about food wastage, and then that sort of sparked my interest in Fresho and an idea I had, which turned out initially to be very much the wrong idea. I had an idea that you could take it from the fishing boat to the restaurant or the farm to the restaurant, and just once I got into this, I realised that was just a daft idea. And then I met my business partner James, who'd been in the industry, been a seafood distributor for one of the biggest in Australia, and had been in the industry 20 years. And that was when we got together and started discussing. It became obvious the problems that we could solve in the fresh food industry, focusing on seafood, fruit and veg, and meat distributors. And that's the rest is history then. Obviously Fresho now coming up to 10 years, and we've got to the point where we're in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Ireland and the US and Singapore, and still growing really well. Obviously we've made mistakes along the way, but we've made a lot more good decisions, and otherwise we wouldn't have got to where we are today. And long introduction.
So for those of the people listening, let's talk a bit more about what Fresho actually is, because it's obviously developed a lot from the beginning, and even us as a business, we use Fresho, and we're still developing our usage of Fresho, because off the front of it, it's simple in what it does, but actually you guys have built in quite a lot of back end that helps businesses like me, from the buying to the selling to the processing of orders, the back end. So our ops team, access to it from an invoicing integration point of view. It handles so many different solutions, and I love it. Since we took it on, it's made a significant difference to our business. Let's talk more about that. What is it that you built, and what problems does it resolve, and what's the kind of goal or the ultimate goal?
Yeah, so we originally started back 9-10 years ago. The first problem we wanted to solve was online ordering, so enabling the suppliers, the distributors, to have their chefs ordering online and have those orders go straight into their platform. So that was the first problem we solved, because there was no one doing that. There was a lot of text messages, emails, faxes, which there still are today, right?
Yeah.
Voice messages. So that was the first problem we solved, and then we realised that a lot of these businesses, we could adopt an operational platform, so to help manage their pricing, because pricing is different per venue, etc. Manage their deliveries, manage their margins, manage their inventory. So we built then almost like a full operational platform, which really helps solve the biggest problems that distributors and suppliers have. And then one we released just recently, about 18 months ago, was AI order capture. So obviously a portion of chefs order online. There's a good portion, probably 50%, that will never order online. And so they're still sending the voice messages and the text messages. And so we can convert those orders into the system. And so then really deal with 100% of the order entry problem, which is very compelling, that particular problem, because if a chef's leaving a voice message at 11 p.m. at night, they probably had 2 or 3 beers down, and it's a bit gurgled, and we can interpret that into an order.
Yeah.
So they're really the problems we're trying to solve. And if we think about then the next things, we just get really excited about solving problems for the industry, because Sebastian, often the suppliers are starting at midnight or even starting at 10 p.m. and working through the night. The chef will place an order at 9 p.m. and want that delivered by 7 or 8 a.m. The amount of work that has to go into that period, and it's very unknown in the wider market. I think a lot of people don't understand how fast this industry is, and so we're really about helping to try and solve problems and make life easier and improve margins and improve business. So we've seen basically the average supplier grows at about 20% year on year post adopting software. Now that's because we take away a lot of the manual entry, etc., manual work that's needed, so it enables them to be able to grow their business. But we're very much early days in the sense that we want to keep solving problems for distributors, and we want to keep listening and getting that feedback as to what other problems could we solve.
Absolutely. And I speak for myself, but particularly the AI order entry is a game changer. Before I took you guys on, we had one full-time sales admin just simply processing orders, and it seemed ridiculous to me that most of our customers would either send a message, voicemail, or a lot of them actually, which is even worse because we deal with retail, as organized as they are, they would create a order on a spreadsheet that they would email to us, And then from that spreadsheet, we would then enter it onto our ordering platform at the time. And then we would put it from that platform, it would then go to an ops system for the ops team to get it ready. And then once the ops system or the ops team have finished preparing the orders, it would go back into us to create the invoice that would go out. And the amount of friction that we had in that process was just ridiculous. And of course, the other problem is the human error, right? Like the more you have people handle and the more friction there is in the process, the more opportunity there was for mistakes. We did have mistakes, and there would be a pain in the ass, of course, to resolve once the invoice is raised and you're having to then raise credits, chase credits, issue the credits, who's done that, have you done this? It was an enormous amount of admin.
I guess it can also, if you get your orders in earlier and out to the floor earlier, and there's less errors, you can get your trucks out earlier, and if you can get your trucks out earlier, then you can effectively deliver more volume, can't you? Because, as soon as you hit traffic at
of course
6:37 a.m., then your trucks are always home late, back to the warehouse later, etc. So anything really to speed up that window, and there's obviously a lot more we can still do, but that really, that as you said, that is a game changer.
Yeah, that was a huge one for us. And also what it does, to be honest, is allows you to then reallocate the resource of what you're saving to, like you say, sales, development, better operational structure, whatever it may be, better improved logistics. There's a number of things you can use that time for rather than all this kind of tedious manual entry stuff. So for us, that was a big one. No
one really wants to do the data entry, putting it into a system. Exactly. That's where we see like the AI really just helps do the jobs that people don't want to do, or that it is time consuming to do. So that's why we're using it to save. And it's not all AI, that tool, but we do use part AI in the process, and really just getting rid of those jobs or helping those jobs that people don't want to do.
Yeah. And the other big one for us was, like you discussed before, the pricing. You see, like for us in the seafood game, prices are, it's like the stock market every day. Prices up and down all day long. Prices change on a daily basis. There's multiple prices for multiple different origins of the fish, the grading of the fish, the sizes, you name it. It's an incredibly complex web of pricing, margins, quoting to do for customers in order to be competitive. And you've got to be quite reactive. And that's been quite difficult in the past. With what you guys offer, it's quite nice because the way you fix your purchasing to then the margin, and it calculates the price automatically. You've got a lot of functionality behind it that actually, again, makes life a lot easier. And things that have been lacking for a long time. I'm someone that embraces technology a lot, and I couldn't find any particular system that would resolve what Fresho has ended up resolving for us. So I've been quite a big advocate for Fresho, that's for sure.
I appreciate that, Sebastian. And I guess, those margins, it's a margin game really, isn't it? So anything you can do to help the margins, notice when you're selling a product that maybe it's a fixed product that you've agreed for a price for a while, and anything you do to notice that, hey, we need to lift that price, or you really need to be on top of margins. And I guess we're trying to make sure we can deliver that information and the tools, right? As you said, the automated margins. As I said, we're trying to listen to all the suppliers and the distributors and what's next. And obviously, we've got the great thing I love is we get a lot of feedback about, hey, this, could you look at this? And that's what we want. You want to be able to keep listening to everyone, and then consolidate and deliver the most powerful features that deliver value.
You guys have been really receptive to feedback actually since the beginning. I'm sure that we've probably helped shape some parts of the Fresho offer with some of our suggestions, but for sure you guys are good at listening to suggestions in general, like you just said. And I think that's such an important thing, because so many of these systems, they become so clunky in the end and unflexible, and that's going to be the biggest problem with especially food businesses that are very dynamic. And in today's world, the change in technology and what's going on, and the competitiveness we need to all have, because the costs are getting higher. You can't keep putting your price up, so what do? You've got to try and save money where you can. And a system like Fresho is what allowed us to actually come out of near bankruptcy at one point, because we had to lay off a lot of people. Unfortunately, thanks to Fresho, it created enough automation and back end that it meant that when we were trying to rescue our business, we were able to, simply because the labor savings and the kind of Fresho provides was quite life-changing for us as a business. Forever grateful for the business, for the system myself.
Well, thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, a few people said during COVID in particular, when the times were tough, a few people said that. That's always good, great vindication, I guess, of what we've built over the years.
Yeah, I think the growth of what the platform does has been great, and I think the one thing that we've noticed that you could really do with two things I would personally want to address as much as you can is a huge opportunity, for everyone really, and that's marketing, allowing some form of better marketing functionality to push specials, sales, whatever it may be, like better automations maybe. There's something there that can be done, I'm sure. Everyone's got all these databases of customers within the systems.
Yeah,
And again, in a changing landscape now where costs are tight and AI is coming hard, your competition's streamlining everything and you need to streamline what you can. And recruiting salespeople is expensive. And if you can automate the sales process because you've already got a database, which is also a CRM system, really, Fresho. So, yeah, I think marketing functionality would be a huge arrow to your bow. And the other one that we've come across a few times, especially with my consultancy, because I always push Fresho. And for businesses that are SALSA or BRC approved, and traceability is a big one, I think the batch numbering and the kind of traceability side of things is great, but it's not quite there to facilitate the requirements of SALSA. Yeah. So those two things, I'd say, if you crack that, you've got yourselves an indestructible beast of a platform that's going to help an enormous amount of businesses, large and small. So that's my only kind of feedback on that.
That's great feedback. Always good to hear it.
Yeah, no worries. So let's talk more about the business side of things here. So you mentioned some challenges and mistakes. Let's talk about them, because people think business is always smooth sailing. People always look at a businessman or entrepreneur or whatever, and they think that you just print money, sit there and count the cash.
Yeah, I wish it was like that.
So what's been your most significant challenges that you've had to overcome over the years?
Yeah, there's been a lot through the journey, but there's been obviously a lot more positives, and where we are, where we got to, because of a lot of positives, but also a lot of the horror stories, if you like, or issues. I guess probably the first one was probably that first period, right, where I thought we could go from farm to plate, etc., and avoid the wholesalers and distributors. It's just, I realised after a few months that would involve a lot of work and a lot of money to make that happen, and thankfully it was pretty quick to realise that wasn't the route to a successful product. And I guess that's where I lent into James and his experience, and together we came up with that, and the platform we have today, really helping distributors and make their lives easier and just improving the system. So that was probably the biggest learning straight up, because I was new to the food industry. Obviously now, having been in almost 10 years and probably seen 1,000 distributors, you understand it backwards, and I love it. It's such a fast-moving industry. I think another big one would have been obviously COVID. You can't really talk about it with this industry without talking about COVID, and obviously I think every distributor had that period for a few weeks where they were like, oh, what the hell is going to happen? And we actually were launching in the UK. Literally, we signed a few suppliers at the end of 2019, and in the US actually we signed 3 in the UK and 2 in the US, and we were expanding over there. And literally, like, we had 4 people in the UK and we were launching 3 suppliers, and this was February 2020 and leading into March 2020. And we were like, what do we do? Do we leave people over there? Do we pull out? And they were shutting the borders, and my coach James was over there. Actually, James was over there. And every day we're talking about, what do we do? Do we keep going? It's just very stressful, and which every business owner was dealing with, right? Because no one knew what was happening.
Yeah, it was the unknown. It was the unknown that was the biggest killer, isn't it? You just didn't know what to do.
And obviously governments started bailing out businesses after, but you didn't know what was going to happen prior to that, right? And so we decided to bring everyone back, and James got one of the last flights back, and there's rumours that he might have been patient 1 into Australia at times, but I won't talk about that. But as he landed in Australia, he said he felt a bit sick, and guys in hazmat suits, this is when really no one knew what was happening. Guys in hazmat suits came onto the plane, and those yellow hazmat suits had to take him off that way.
Wow.
And found out he had COVID, so he had it. It was one of the first into Australia, I think maybe number 50 or something. Wow. So that was one of those periods, and then to see the volume on the site just go from that just to stop trading. But back then, I think the one thing I love about the industry is everyone's all the business owners, they're very like entrepreneurial and they're very agile and they're just like, what are we doing now? And everyone wanted to go beat to consumers. And so we actually then, I guess, turned it into a positive of helping distributors go to consumers. So we knocked something up where consumers could sign up.
Okay.
We ended up getting something like 300,000 consumers signing up over a few month period. Obviously, consumers are more difficult to deal with. They're a bit harder. I remember one of the first orders that came through the consumer side. One of our fruit and veg guys was selling it, and the complaint to us was, I ordered 5 kilos of oranges, and I normally get 30 oranges in my 5 kilos, but I only got 29 oranges. So,
oh, Jesus. Big problems, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's people.
Yeah, and obviously we've had those times where you think, particularly early on, you're dealing with the people that just want more and more features, etc., which is great. It's good and bad, right? Because people are using your platform and really because there's so many problems that we wanted to solve. Sometimes you get drawn into different angles and you got to really focus on what are the major problems that you want to solve.
Absolutely.
But that's good and bad, right? Because if people are using your platform, you've got great. That's what you need. So it's just it was balance back then. It was balancing those demands and of what people wanted, but what was going to be the biggest problem solvers.
And did you always want to go global with this? Was that always part of the plan?
Yeah. I realised early on that you want to. First, we had to identify that food distributors, you're fresh, because we focus on fresh, so seafood, fruit and veg and meat. Had to focus on, is the problem the same? Are the users the same? Because the problem is if they're using platform differently, then you have to rebuild it, and there's no point doing that. As soon as we knew that food distributors in the US and the UK, it's exactly the same problem. They're dealing with the same problems because you're moving a physical good.
Yep.
They're all solving the same problem. So that made it easy to go global because you didn't have to build anything extra.
Yeah, right.
Sure, priorities might be slightly different, but something that's valuable to US suppliers is also valuable to UK suppliers, to Australian suppliers. That made it easier to go global, and we always wanted to. Hence 2019 we were trying to expand globally, and Australia's obviously a decent sized market, but it's 27 million people.
Yeah, of course.
There's only a certain size business you can get to just focusing on Australia, so we want to build a big business, and so that's why we wanted to go to UK and US, which is probably where we'll stop, really the English speaking markets. There's just so many problems to solve that we could solve and help businesses rather than expand into every single country. That's just not us. I think it's really just about focusing on the markets where we are now.
Interesting. Obviously with a kind of system like this, you must have needed funding. I know you had another investment round, was it last year?
Yeah, so
30 million?
We've been very lucky to get, so we've raised 50 million to date and 17 million the sort of start of last year, and that's set us up to expand in the US. And yeah, we're obviously lucky to be in a very good funding position. We've got some great investors, but it's also just a function of the growth and where we've got to. Yeah, and it's just great that we get that confidence from investors into the business, and sets us up. We're a bit more conservative. We always like to hold more cash and raise before you need to, etc.
Yeah.
But now we're close to break even, so it's in that good position of still having a good cash balance and also being close to break even. It means that we're in that position where we can keep investing in the product and the technology, and while investing in the US.
Nice. And how easy was it to secure the funding? I guess your background helped a lot in that.
Yeah, that certainly helped. Like I've raised money for years, and some ones were easier. Luckily, we raised I think 5 or 6 million just before COVID, so timing always helps as well. No one was ever going to raise money during that 2020, so timing's helped. And I think it's always easier to raise money when you don't need to, because then investors are like, oh, they don't need to raise. Whereas if you're going to investors when you have to raise money, then they're going to be dictating a lot of things, and then they might wait and etc. So that's always been our plan, is always raising when you don't have to raise.
Interesting.
Because it puts you in a position of strength. You know what I mean?
A good tip. And actually, I guess everybody usually does the complete opposite of what you just said, because
Yes.
the times I've had to raise money is usually exactly when I'm in the shit. And of course, the lender knows that, and they try and bend you over, which
Exactly. But we always have a cash flow forecast, and it's less relevant for us now just because of the break even, but it's very relevant early days. You got to forecast your cash flow and time it maybe so when your results are really good, and maybe in the UK it'd be after June, you've just had a really good summer, and that's when you pilot raise, or after Christmas, or so you get the timing right. You got to get the approach right. So what's the story behind it? And obviously you've got to have good performance, right? Good performance.
Yeah, of course.
But also about what ideas, and communicate the ideas, how you're going to use the money to grow, etc.
And what does the funding look? Where does it mostly go to? Is it more marketing? Is it personnel? Is it the actual build out?
Yeah, great questions. A lot of it goes into the product. We have 4 development teams, and so we're always trying to build new features, because that's how we obviously make money, from suppliers subscribing to the platform, and it's generally monthly. Like, suppliers can terminate after 30 days, but obviously we get such low churn because of the product. But we go so definitely into the product, and then also into personnel, what we call the go-to-market, marketing, sales, onboarding, support, but very heavy into the product. Now, because most of the countries are break even, most of it's just going to the US as we're starting to expand over here. We've got nine people, and that's going to be really the team that we have initially. We're almost 100 globally, nine in the US, because the development is in Australia.
Right. Okay. So you actually have the developers in Australia, or you outsource it as well?
No, it's our team. Yeah. It's all internal.
Nice. I must admit, even for my small business, we often look at outside of the UK for what we can, purely because there's a lot of expertise out there, and of course, a lot more affordable to get the services. But then managing people like this is obviously got its own challenges. So it's interesting to know how you do it.
Yeah, I know a number of companies outsource. We tend to keep it in-house, just because they get to know the industry very well, and they become experts as well in the industry and understand the problems. And that's what you really need. You really need people that understand the problems and have been to factories and seen how, when you're going live with a distributor, and seeing the problems there, and talk to the owners, and talk to the 2 a.m, a bit stressed, and
visits to Billingsgate Market.
That's right. Yeah. All the markets, always good. It's hectic.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's funny because hey,
cheap coffee at the markets.
Yeah,
usually bad
exactly. Cheap and bad. Yeah, food. The reason I started this podcast about food and hospitality and drink and anything around that really is just there's something that brings people into this industry, and it seems to grab a hold of you and keeps you there. And I always try and get to the bottom of what it is that brings people to this industry, which is oftentimes difficult, oftentimes not the best pay or conditions, a lot of challenges on a daily basis or even hourly basis for most businesses, extremely volatile, very competitive, low margins. It's a very unforgiving industry, but somehow it works, and people, like I say, once they come in it, they stay there. And it's always interesting to me to find out what's been your why for the food industry and what's kept you in it.
Yeah, I think it is one of the best industries, just because it's every day. I remember James, my business partner, always had this thing of basically every day is like a new day. If you stuff up you might have had great service to this customer for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you deliver badly the next day. Every day is just a new day. Every day you got to buy, every day you got to prepare, cut, fill it. Every day you got to deliver it, and sell it. It's just like one of those things, but it's one of those fascinating industries that it's everyone. It's 100% target market. Everyone needs to eat, particularly.
Yeah, right.
That's why we focused on seafood, fruit and veg and meat, is because it's the centre of the plate.
Yeah.
It's pricing variability, it's availability variability. It's in and out. It's not much storage of stuff, excluding frozen and stuff like that. But it's just really fast paced. And I think, funnily enough, my dad was in the seafood industry, so he had a distributor back in the 80s, early days, and then was in tech. So perhaps subconsciously, I always wanted to follow him in that. But I've always loved food, and my friends used to give me grief at school about how much I ate. And then, so I've always loved food, and then just the industry, and really what I think drives us and myself is very much seeing when you're solving problems. If your technology can help solve problems for distributors, I think that really that really gives me the pleasure. If you know you can make a difference and help people grow their business and reduce stress or to take a holiday that they never did, that's really when you...
Yeah. And you must have a lot of that because in this industry here, I'm sure you've come across it. In fact, recently, I think I recommended a business near me that was still using pen to paper for the process. And it's, for me, I'm sure it's the same for you because I'm a very process-led person, but it's painful to watch someone still doing these things. And understandably, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's pretty often the mentality you get.
Yeah.
But once you're able to demonstrate something that doesn't need to be, and just how much time it's going to save you, and stress, and also being glued to your job. The food industry, like you said before, in the beginning, I barely took holidays because it's so labor intensive 24/7 that it was very difficult to separate yourself from it. But actually, the more you adopt these kind of systems, the more you realize just how much freedom you can obtain. Especially because what I love about Fresho is I could quite easily go and be in a month in Spain, wherever, be on an elongated holiday. And if I've got my laptop on me, and obviously I've got the team, I can be, with Fresho, I feel like I'm there with the team at all times, or in any department.
Anywhere. That's right.
You know what I mean? I could be looking at ops, I could be looking at the logistics, I could be looking at the signed deliveries, I could be looking at making sure the invoices are all on there, the payments are coming in, the pricing, the products, you name it. You can navigate through your entire business. So long as you've got the personnel physically at the site, in terms of management, you can relax a lot more knowing that everything's been taken care of with Fresho. And I think that's a huge feature that I think it should be at the forefront of your advertising.
I know. We need to talk about that because it is one of those things. There's the monetary pieces, the fact that you get bigger growth and you can increase savings, but there's actually the personal reduced stress and time. Getting time. Time is something you can't really value too much. And
absolutely, time gives no refunds.
That's right. You talked about digital, I guess, laggards and that sort of stuff. It's funny, we've had some suppliers here who are handwriting on cardboard and sending it out onto the factory floor. And the other day we sold a business. They get about a couple of thousand orders a day, so they're a big business, and they still get about 150 faxes a day.
Faxes? Wow, I didn't realize they existed still.
Yeah, the machine just goes over there.
Wow. Crazy, right? It's crazy. But like you say, this business, that's the beauty about the food industry as well, is that it's not incredibly complex in its most basic form. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're trying to put get food from A to B and oftentimes prepare it to spec. It's pretty simple off the back of it, and it attracts a lot of people that were not necessarily strong at school, for example. They don't want to be on a desk. They don't want to be looking at systems. It gives them anxiety to think about these things. And that's why they've stayed with these old school kind of ways of doing things, simply because they were just they didn't lean towards technology and systems like perhaps we have, right? And to try and introduce them to it, I'm sure you meet a lot of resistance to it. But the beauty about Fresho is that people of all walks of life, and the simplicity of it is very easy to show. The benefits are really obvious as well for what difference it can make to your life, both operationally, financially, personally, and it's a great system to push through. And I'm always really happy to refer anyone to Fresho that I meet along the way. It's a great system.
Appreciate that, Sebastian. Yeah, it is. When we're very hands-on, we're definitely people, naturally I think most people are resistant to change. It's hard to want to change, and often they've built up really successful businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. But
there's always, that's why you get that growth year on year post, because you realise, oh wow, and then you see our reviews and everything like that, people are like, oh wow, this is a game changer for us, etc. That's enabled us to grow. Yeah, obviously appreciate the feedback, Sebastian.
No, it's all good. I'm sure you know I've always been a big advocate of a Fresho, and happy to keep being an advocate for it. You definitely. We're actually adopting now, finally, the kind of stock management and purchase orders out of the system. Because we struggled in the past purely because we use other systems as well. So for the shop, online sales, blah, blah, blah. So we never had a one system for everything. But again, thanks to Fresho's kind of innovation and adaptability, we've worked out a way to put in figures from all other systems into Fresho, to use Fresho as our kind of master platform for all stock in and out, which will be a game changer for us, to, especially in the food industry, in the seafood industry. It's so difficult with stock, and we think we've almost cracked it, and that's thanks to you guys. So I'll give you feedback once we've implemented it and we're a couple of months in, and see if it's worked well for us.
Yeah, great. That'd be great.